Hi friends, welcome to Azure Content. I hope you all are doing great. So I'm going to create a new playlist called Azure Logic Apps Real-Time Scenarios playlist, where we will be witnessing few requirements related to Azure Logic Apps, and we will be practically seeing the demonstration by creating the Logic App. So Logic App is basically a no-code or low-code platform in Azure. It's one of the Azure integration services, which basically allows us to create automated workflows with the help of actions and triggers. So in this playlist, we will practically see how to create the logic app in order to meet different requirements. Okay. So now in this video, our requirement is to read the JSON data from a file present in ADLS, which means Azure Data Lake Storage, and then insert the data into SQL table. Okay. So let's practically see how to read the JSON from Azure Data Lake Storage using Logic App and then how to insert it into a SQL table. So let's go to Azure portal. So this is the homepage of Azure portal. So we need to create a Logic App. So we can click on this create a resource button and we can directly search Logic Apps. Okay. And in the marketplace, you can see there are lots of services with the name of Logic Apps and then custom connector management, all of these. But we need to search for only Logic App. So let me click on this Logic App and then click on create. So let's wait. Now, if you have a resource group already, then you can choose one or else you can create a new one. So I have selected the existing one and then I'll give a name for this Logic App. So let me give demo LA, okay, which means demo logic app. So you can see it is not a unique name. So it's saying demo LA is not available. So let me give some another name, say demo Anu logic app. Let's wait. Yeah, so you can see it is uniquely identified and now we can create it. So let's leave it as it is. The region is East US. And then there are two options for plan type, which is standard, which is best for enterprise level, and then consumption, which is best for entry level. And here you have to pay as much as your workflow runs. So I'm going to go ahead with consumption one because this is just for the demo. And then let's go to next, and hit on review plus create. So let's wait for its validation to be completed and then let's hit on create. So you can see the deployment has been initialized. Let's wait for the resource to be deployed. It might take few minutes. So you can see deployment is in progress. Yeah, so deployment succeeded and our logic app has been created. If we click on this go to resource, it will redirect us to the logic app. Okay. So now what we have to do is we have to go to this logic app designer. Okay. And this is the place where we need to create our logic app. Okay. Now before creating the logic app, let me show you how the source file looks, which is residing in my Azure Data Lake storage account. Okay. So here, if I go to containers, inside sample container, I have this JSON file, sample file.json. And if I hit on edit, you can see the content of this JSON file. So here's a property called employees. Within that, there's a nested JSON and there are three properties: employee name, hire date, and salary. Okay. So this is what I have to load it into my SQL table. Okay, with the help of Logic app. So if I open my SQL server, you can see there's a table which I have created called employees table. And here we have three columns: employee name, hire date, and salary, which is matching with the properties present here: employee name, hire date, and salary. And the table name is employees. Okay. So basically, we have to map the data and we have to load it in the first column. ABC should be coming as employee name, then hire date should be coming here, and then the salary 10,000 should be coming here. Okay. Okay, so this is our requirement. So now let's go back to Logic App Designer. So right now we are at the Logic App Designer page where you can see there is a default action added here, which is add a trigger. Okay, so we need to add a trigger here. So the trigger can be either an event-based trigger or a scheduled trigger. So what I mean by that is, so suppose there is any dependency on the connector present in the Logic App. So for example, if we have a SQL Server connector, and you can see these are two types of trigger present in the SQL connector. So when an item is created or when an item is modified, so basically when there is any insertion of any row or if you can see that if there is any table created, then we can fire this logic app. Or if there is any modification in any of the item, then we can set this as a trigger. Okay. So similarly, if we search for blob storage, so you can see when a blob is added or modified, then this logic app could be fired. Or similarly, if an HTTP request is received, so we can search for when HTTP. So you can see in the request connector, we have this when a HTTP request is received. So whenever an HTTP request for this logic app is received, then this logic app would be fired. So this kind of trigger, if we add, then it is basically an event-based trigger. But if we search for schedule trigger, so here you can see there's something called recurrence, which we can add as a schedule trigger, which means you can run this logic app daily or monthly or as per your need, you can run this schedule trigger. Okay. And then there is something called sliding window as well. So we are going to go ahead with recurrence. So here you can set the interval and the available frequencies are these. Okay. So for now, I'm going to set it as a daily trigger. So let it be like that. We can change it anytime and we can select the time zone, and here it is. And then the start time, we can select today's date. So let me give the date 0000 and at this hour. Okay. And then at this hour. So let it be at 10. So it will run at 10 every day. So let it be like that. And then we can click on this add button and we can add an action. So first thing that I need to do is I need to read this file which is present in my ADLS account. Okay. So I will search for blob, get blob content. Okay. So you can see I have this now, and we need to specify the connection for that blob storage. Okay. So we need to give a name for this connection. So let me give as ADLS connection, and then authentication type. I'm going to select managed identity. Okay. So logic app managed identity would need access in order to read the file present in the ADLS. Okay. So let me first create the connection and then we will go ahead with providing the access that is required. So now the connection is ready. And here we need to specify the storage account name or the endpoint. So let me go to a storage account and you can see this is the storage account name. Let me copy that and let me enter custom value, and I have pasted the storage account name. And then we need to specify the blob. So if I click on here, so you can see it has thrown an error while executing the following API parameter. So it tried to access the storage account, but it was not able to fetch the root folders. Okay. So let me do one thing. Let me go back. Let me save it. Okay, I can't save it because here we have an error. Let me delete it and then let me save it. And then what we will do is we will search for identity. And here we will search for the system managed identity. So you can see system assigned managed identity that we are trying for authentication is off right now. So let me switch it on, and then it will create a managed identity with this name. Okay, with the same name as the logic app name. So now our managed identity is ready. I have copied the name of this managed identity, which is nothing but the logic app name. And then I will go to storage account access control and I will assign a role in order to uh, let the managed identity preview the file present in the storage account. So for that, what I will need is I will need the storage blob data contributor access, which will allow to read, write, and delete in the blob storage. So it will give access to the managed identity. So let me give the managed identity name. So let me select all managed identity and let me try to search for this managed identity name. So it so you can see it is not appearing. Let me go here and let me try to refresh because we just created the managed identity. So it might not have been there before the page was refreshed. Let's wait and let's again search for storage blob data contributor, storage blob data contributor role, and let's select the managed identity. And now you can see logic app was not appearing first, and now it is appearing and it has the same name. So I don't even need to give the name, it is appearing by default. So now let me hit on review plus assign. So it is adding the role, which is storage blob data contributor role. So it is done now. Let's go back to the designer. So now let's again add the action, that is get, let me search for blob. So you can see get blob content. This is what we were trying to add as an action. Okay. So now that we have the access in place, we should be able to create this action now. So let's search for storage account name. Let me copy it again, unknown ADLS 123. And then now if I click on this, you can see we are able to access the container present in the storage account. So we just have one container, sample container, which is visible here. You can see that, right? And if I navigate further, we can see the sample file.json as well. So we have directly selected the path for that blob. Okay. And other things are fine. Let me hit on save now. And let me run the logic app. So we are expecting that the logic app would be able to fetch the data. In the run history, we are able to see that logic app has been succeeded within few seconds. You can see the duration 891 milliseconds it took in order to run the logic app. Okay. And if I click on the action, so if I go down, this is the input. We have set the path and the connection string, and in the output you can see status code is 200 and header and then body. So content type, it has by default set as octet stream, and the content is looking something like this. So you can see it is fully encoded and we are not able to read the content as it is fully encoded. So what we need to do is we need to change the content type as application slash JSON instead of octet stream, or else we need to find some way in order to change this into a JSON format. Okay. So let me go to designer back and let's try to create a variable. So we will search for something called initialize variable. You can see, and let's give the name as blob content, and the type would be an object because if you see the file, it is a JSON file, and the data is a nested JSON. You can see it's an object basically. So it's of object type, and then here in the value we have two options. Either we can select the data from the previous steps or we can write our own expression. Okay, so if I click on this, it will select the same content which is coming as the output of the previous step. Okay, so we don't want that. We want the output to be converted into JSON type. So I'm going to click on this function in order to create our expression. Okay, so if I go on this dynamic content, we can select this file content. So this is what it was selecting if we would have selected the first option. Okay, so this is the expression for that. But now on top of this, we want to change it to JSON format. Okay, so let me search for that. So you can see convert the input to JSON value. So here I will select this, and then inside this I will um, pass this as a parameter. Okay, now we are expecting that it should be coming as this. Okay, so if we run this logic app, we would be expecting that it will show us the content of the blob storage. Okay, so let me click on add and let me save this. Yeah, so it saves successfully, and now let me hit on run. It's triggered, and if we go to the run history, it is already succeeded. Let's check the output. Let me minimize. So you can see input variable and then properties. So there is nothing called output. Basically, this variable has been set with this value now. Okay. So now we are able to see the data as a JSON. You can see name of this variable is blob content and variable type is object, and the value, you can see all of these is coming, which we can see in the blob file as well. Okay. So we are able to see the content as a JSON. Okay. Now, if we want to refer to this JSON present in the value property of this variable, we need to parse this JSON. Okay. So let me go to the designer again, and we will try to parse the JSON, and we will add an action called Parse JSON. So let's try to search for that. It's coming under data operations. And if we click on that, here what we need to do is we need to provide the content, and then we need to provide the schema for that JSON. So for content, we are just going to point to this variable content. Okay. So let me go here and we will select this blob content, which is basically the value present in the variable blob content. Okay. So now, in order to provide schema for this, we can use a sample payload to generate the schema. So here we need to provide the JSON payload. So in order to do that, I will go to the official Logic App documentation, and here we have the parse JSON action. And here we have a sample JSON. You can see it is almost similar to our JSON. It is also a nested JSON, and for this they have given a sample payload. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and then we will modify it and we will paste it here. And you can see the root property for this is member. Okay, for this JSON, but for us it is employee. Okay, so I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it here. And then one, two, three. There are three properties here, and for us also there are three properties. So let me uh, modify it according to our JSON. And salary. Salary is not a string in our file. It is basically integer. So let me give the type as integer. Okay. So it's done. Okay. So let me close it and save it. Yeah. So it's saved. Now, if we run it, there would not be much changes in the output. Let's see the run history. Yeah, it is succeeded. And if we see the content of parse JSON, let it load. So this was our input, which is pointing to the variable. And then this is how the output looks like. It's basically the same thing, but it has parsed the JSON so that we can refer to each of the contents or each of the properties in the JSON. And then we can use those in the further actions. Okay. So let me go back. Now what we have to do is we have to load it into the SQL table. So each of the columns should be mapped correctly to the properties present in the JSON. Okay. So for that, I'm going to create an action and I'm going to search for a SQL server in order to insert a row into the SQL. Okay. So instead, let me search for insert row. So this is for MySQL. Let me search for SQL server. Yeah, here you can see insert row action is present. So here we need to create the connection for the SQL database. So here let me give the connection name as SQL connection, and authentication type I will select it SQL server authentication, and we can specify the server name, database name, user ID and password. So let me go here. Let me copy the server name and paste it here. Database name, this one. Let me paste it here. Username and password, and then let me hit on create. We don't need any gateway, it's needed for on-premise. So let's let it get created. And then so our connection is ready. We have already connected to the SQL database, and now we have to select it here. Let me select the database name, table name. So our table name is employees. Okay, so you can see it here, employees table. So you can think of it as this connection is similar to linked service in ADF, and this place where we are selecting the table name, it is similar to the data set. Okay, and if we go to advanced parameter and if we click on show all, it will be able to give us the columns present in the table. Okay, so here we have to pass the value from the logic app. Okay, so let me click on function and let me go to dynamic content. So from Parse JSON, we have to search for employee name and it has generated the code for us. So this is the expression that we would need in order to point to the employee name property present in the nested JSON. Okay. So let me hit on add, and similar to that, we will do the same thing for hire date. So let me search for hire date. It's not coming here. Not sure why. Let me search here, hire underscore date. Yeah, now we can see it, and let me add it. And similar to that, let me do the same for salary. Salary, parse JSON, body salary. Okay, so we have added all of the three values for each of the columns present in the table. Now let me collapse it and let me save it. Yeah, so it is saved successfully. Now, before running the logic app, let me again execute this and show you there is no rows present in the table. Okay, and let me hit on run now from the logic app, and let's wait. In the run history, it's already succeeded. So you can see all of the actions have been succeeded, and if you can see the insert row output, it is 201. Let's go there in the database and let's try to execute. So none of the values got updated, but there's one row created. And if we see the output here, it is basically passing nothing. It's an empty string here. So let's go back to the designer and let's see what's the problem here. So basically, insertion is happening. So there's no problem with this action. It's inserting the row, but the value that we are providing here, that might not be the correct one. Let's see again. So this is what we are passing, right? So basically here you can see body parse JSON, then question mark, then properties, employees, properties, employee name. Okay. So let it be like that and let me go to parse JSON. I guess this sample JSON payload is the problem. There are a lot of things that are repeated here. I feel we have done some mistake while copying. Here it looks very small. Let me go there and let me paste it properly. Now, if I scroll down, you can see the JSON is comparatively very small now. And instead of member, let me copy employees and let me make sure only employees is copied and pasted, not the entire JSON. Let me do the same thing for each of the properties present in employees. So maybe there was some mistake here that happened last time. And instead of the string data type, we are going to use it integer. Uh, it should be fine. Let me save it and let me make sure it's looking the same way. Yeah, okay. And now if I go to insert row, let me delete all of these. And again, let me go to dynamic content. Now from here, we will select for body employee name. And you can see the expression is looking much more simple now. And let's do the same for each of this hire date and same for salary. Okay, yeah, so let me save it. So basically in the parse JSON, we need to make sure that the schema is looking same as the schema of the input file. Okay, else it will not be treating it as a valid JSON. So now let me first truncate this table employees. Okay, now select it. No rows are there. Now let me run the logic app. It is triggered. If we see the history, it is successful. If we see the table, you can see now the data has been inserted. Okay, and it is the same data present here. Employee name ABC and hire date is 23/10/2022 and salary is 10,000. Okay, so this is what we were trying to achieve, but we did some mistake while parsing the JSON, and that's why empty string was loaded into the table. But now it is completely resolved. Okay, so that's how we will use Logic App in order to read the JSON data and then parse it and then insert it into the SQL table. So we have achieved it practically by creating the Logic App, and this was just a simple JSON where we just had one row. But what if there would be multiple rows and we would have to load it into the SQL table? We will cover it in the next video, so please stay tuned. So that's it for this video, guys. I hope this video was helpful. Please hit on like button and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it yet. Thank you.